This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spec Tales, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesús.
What is going on, spectators? Thanks for clicking that secret unlock button on the holes in your head and shoveling in a heaping dose of Spec Tales. I'm your host, Jake, along with my co-host, a man known around the world for their beard. What's going on, Jesús?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. I have been beardinating from the all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, and you know the old saying, "Boy, are my arms tired from all the beardinating."
Well, if this is your first time joining us for Spec Tales, thank you for giving us a listen. Spec Tales is a comic book podcast that asks collectors and creators, what is your Grail tale? Each week, Jesús and I, me, Jake, we explore new stories about the comic book grails we love, the epic journeys behind how they were obtained, and how they inspired new creativity.
We also dive into some comic book speculation and how, as collectors, we can help the hobby pay for itself.
Amazing. But
yeah.
Wait, I'm not Jake.
Thank you. I'm so happy to drop the facade. I know that everyone was so convinced that I am, in fact, Jesús from my really, really great impression, but I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to be Jake. I feel
like you really embodied it. Like, I know that I was in on it, but I was really...
Well, I told Jake that I would have to drink Red Bull in order to embody him. I feel like that's the key to Jake, but I decided to go with 3 cups of coffee instead of Red Bull. So I think I got close.
There you
go. Here is what's happening. Jake and Jesús are still transitioning into their new homes. They are moving, and they miss all of you, their faithful listeners, and we miss them also. And they promise to be back with a vengeance very soon. So, in fact, I am Skrull Jake. This is a secret invasion. We have taken over, and my Skrull name is actually Guido, co-host of Dear Watchers.
And I am not Jesús, but don't get confused. I am Lisa Gullickson from Comic Book Couples Counceling. And I know that you are feeling a lot of anxiety right now. You may not feel very safe. Like you're afraid that there's going to be this like Spec Tales shaped hole in your life. But Jake and Jesús, they have taken care of you because Skrulls like Guido and I are going to sub in for the next couple of episodes until we get our bros back in August.
Yes. So Lisa and I are hosting this first episode, and listeners, you can expect 2 more secret invasions with additional Skrull hosts for each. This episode was out, if you're listening, the last week of June, and you'll get another heaping dose of Spec Tales Secret Invasion July 12th, and the final episode July 26th.
Now, don't worry. Like, Jake and Jesús, they might be off planet, right? They might not be here with you this way, but you can still message them on Instagram or Twitter. You can email them. You can write, hey, we really love your substitute host, but they just don't. We really miss you a lot. Those are the kinds of things you can message them with, and they will get back to you.
Or message them to say, we prefer the Skrull versions, and we'd rather you don't come back to your show.
Impossible.
So, whichever you'd prefer. So this week, on to the actual show. I'm going to go back to being Jake. So you might have noticed my face just transformed. Yeah. Lisa, I see the beard growing out of your Skrull face.
Itchier than I anticipated. Anything.
Yeah, and I have to figure out how to talk with a Nebraska accent, but I won't try. So on to the actual show. This week, we have a guest. We have the segments you love, our recent pickups, our grail tale, our speculation, and our guest is Randall Lotowycz. Randall is a writer, editor, comic book historian, connoisseur of cult films, fan of all things tattooing, and he wrote the Superhero Playbook, Lessons in Life from Your Favorite Superheroes, which, by the way, Lisa, if you're not familiar with that, Jesus, I should say, it's a really cool book for people who have any sense of being a teacher and taking care of kids, because it takes heroes and transforms them into social and emotional learning for kids. So,
I think
cool
Lisa
thing.
would love that. It sounds right up her comic book counseling alley.
But Randall's also the author of the DC Book of Lists, a multiverse of legacies, histories, and hierarchies, the DC Comics superhero and villains fandex. He's done back matter for Convergence. He did backups to Michael Recycle from IDW. Most recently, he just had released The Flash, the official visual companion, the Scarlet Speedster from Page to Screen, which is basically like the movie encyclopedia. And so Randall's just an awesome editor, author, two-time guest of Dear Watchers, and I'm biased because Randall's also my editor on 2 forthcoming books I'm working on. So welcome, Randall, to the Spec Tales Secret Invasion.
Hi, thank you. I can't believe I've been Skrull fished, but it's good. It's great to be here.
You were expecting Jake and Jesús, and you got us.
I'm really fascinated to speak with you because I never grew up as a lists person. I find the idea of lists really intimidating. Like if I sit and meditate on the vastness of the DC universe, I might just become totally overwhelmed with how much there is. But I loved what you said in your introduction to the DC Book of Lists, that by zooming out, you begin to find all of these patterns of meaning in the totality of it all. And for me, it makes me feel like there is meaning in lists, and there is poetry in creating a really complete list.
I agree. Other than the part about complete, because I feel like these things can never be complete because they're always going to be growing. But no, I never thought of myself as a list person, and then in making that book, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I kind of am. And I've edited other books that are more or less just giant lists, and it's fun. It speaks to my anal retentive side.
Well, and it's like an encyclopedia, but a little more digestible and a little more curated, which is fun.
And just quirky and weird, which is what I go for.
All right. Are we ready? Should I click the magic button that I get to click since I'm Jake?
Yeah.
All right. Here we go.
Recent pickups.
Yeah. All right. So for this segment, everybody's going to talk about something that you recently read or collected and why you selected it to share today. So Randall, why don't we start with you?
Oh, okay. You're putting me on the spot. Well, the most recent thing I read was a reread, but I just needed to reread it. It's the thing I've been preaching all year is One Star Squadron by Mark Russell. I read it for the first time in January, and I'm now on my second read of it because it's just one of my favorite things DC has put out in years.
Wow. That is cool. I loved that series too. What is it that made you return to it?
Well, on one level, is because hopefully I'll be working with Mark Russell on something soon. But the other level is I just sort of wanted to re-experience this really funny and heartbreaking work. So I went back to it.
Lisa, are you familiar with that series?
I'm not reading it.
Oh, it's 6 issues. It's, one and done. It's about, a bunch of C to Z list superheroes trying to make a living in the gig economy for a superhero app. And it'll break your heart.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That sounds so cool.
It is cool, and I enjoyed it even not having the deep knowledge that you have, Randall, of DC characters, and especially those deep bench characters. But I still loved it, even though I didn't.
Don't think you need it.
I'm sure no.
That's the key of a good work is you don't need to really know these characters. You're going to get to know them, and they're that's also, I mean, there's slightly different characterizations like this. If you're very familiar with Power Girl, you might not recognize how she's depicted here, but it still feels true to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think Mark Russell does, I don't even know what to call it. It's not totally satire, but it's like, I guess it's social commentary series.
Very social, yeah.
One Star Squadron is one, or Flintstones, or those are just all great examples. Obviously, Exit Stage Left, the Snagglepuss Chronicles, which is one of my favorite queer comics out there.
And then he did Superman Space Age this year too. He's a great writer. So
yeah. All right. Good choice. It's going to be tough to beat. Lisa, what do you got to compete on our recent pickups?
Most recently, I got a sneak peek of the new volume of Lonesome Hunters from Tyler Crook. If you haven't read volume 1, I highly recommend. Tyler Crook is an amazing artist and writer. You might know him from Harlow County. But Lonesome Hunters is coming out from Dark Horse Comics, and it's about this old guy. He's 126 years old. He's had this burden of this magic sword that he's been carrying around, which he hates. And he ends up rescuing this girl, Lupe, who is part of the foster system. And they go on adventures together trying to figure out what to do with this magic sword. And it's so steeped in symbolism and the idea of like, the magic sword can be used to hurt people, but it also can be used to heal people. And can something like that always be bad? And it's just really beautiful. And volume 2, as a huge fan, like, it does not disappoint. It really goes deeper into the inner meaning of the story, and I just love it so much. And then I have a twofer. Is that okay?
I'm going to say it's okay, and I'm Jake. I get to decide. So
Jake,
yes.
I know I have to defer to you. No, I don't. I'm Jesus. I'm my own person.
Exactly.
I can do whatever I want. And so I've been getting into manga a little bit, and I just read I Want to Be a Wall, Volume 2. I'm holding it up so that they can see it. You guys can't see it because you're listening.
It is cool looking, I'll tell you that.
It's really, really sweet. It's about, the first volume is about, there is these two characters. One's a gay man who has this really long-standing crush on his best friend, and he's like stuck in the closet, and his parents keep pressuring him towards getting married. And then this woman who is asexual, and she is also being pressured to get married. And so they decide to enter a marriage of convenience to each other. And the book is all about like chosen family and how much intimacy you can establish without having any like romantic inclination towards each other. And in the second volume, the girl is obsessed with boy love comics, and it's something that the guy doesn't really understand because he's like, "But I thought you were asexual. Why would you want these deeply like sexualized comic books?" And so he takes her to this convention, and the entire time she thinks he's doing it out of like politeness or something, but really he's doing it out of a deep curiosity to get to know her. And so far it's just like so cute, and I love it so much. And so is it
ongoing or
it is ongoing? So this is okay. I don't even know if I said the title. The title is I Want to Be a Wall. It's by Honami Shirono, and it is super cute.
Who publishes it?
It is from Yen Press. So this is actually like a, obviously an American edition. And yeah, it's really good. I don't know how many volumes there are. I'm sure there are many more because that's how manga works.
Yeah, sometimes it does feel endless, but great. You're bringing your fighting game here with two recommendations in your recent pickups.
Maybe I'll finally get more points than you, Jake. This could be my episode. You don't know.
We'll see. We'll see. As the arbiter of all things point related, I'm not sure, but I'll share my pick. I went with a title that is out right now. The 3rd issue just came out. It's Terror War by Saladin Ahmed. It is from Image. And while there are, I feel like a real deluge, however you say that word. I think that's deluge. Good. Yeah, sure. That's how they say it in Nebraska.
You're communicating, Jake. You're communicating.
There are all these Image books that are like future, slightly near future sci-fi action books, I think, and they're all really good. This one I started reading and was like, okay, fine, it's more of the same. And then the twist is, and this is in the solicitation, so I feel okay spoiling it, the terrors that they're fighting in this near future slightly post-apocalyptic world are all people's deepest fears manifested. Ooh. So those are like the monsters and the terrors that they fight in this war. And it's such a cool concept, and it's a really well-designed world. And I suspect it's one of the Image miniseries. I don't think it's meant to be ongoing, but I'm not totally sure. And I really loved the first few issues and am looking forward to more. So people should check out Terror War by Saladin Ahmed, of course, of Miles Morales Spider-Man and Ms. Marvel fame, Saladin Ahmed.
I want to check that out. Although now I'm picturing Lisa fighting Alf.
Yeah. You know, it might be a shallow fear, but still, like, it controlled me as a child. Made me scared of flipping channels.
Oh, I love that. I don't know who owns the comic rights to Alf anymore, but I hope it's Image and that we do get to see a big, giant kaiju Alf in Terror War.
It's so wrinkly, you know? It's...
Well, I think because of that picture, Randall, you just helped boost me to the win. I think that I have the top picks. Jake gets the most points thanks to the kaiju Alf.
You know, I am going to read that at some point, and I don't, you know, but the two Lisa mentioned, those are like, I got to buy this weekend. So,
oh, no. Yeah. Oh, no.
If only Lisa were here to collect her points.
Here, I know.
It's true. Gosh, if I wasn't Jake, I would award the points to Jesus. But as Jake, I have to award them to myself. So I win, but it was perhaps we're close to tied, all of us.
Oh, that feels great.
All right. Well, that sets us up to hear from Randall in our next segment.
Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale.
This is it. This is the segment all our listeners are waiting for. This is where our bread is buttered. This is where our corn is creamed, because this is where our grails are collected. So, Randall, this is your segment. Tell us your grail tale.
Okay, so, you know, I know we were talking about this ahead of time, where it's, I've never really had a situation where it's like I've been looking for something for years and then I finally lucked onto it or something like that. That's never happened for me, but I've kind of had a cool life where I've just randomly gotten some really cool stuff, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, that's my grail. I'm never letting go of it. Before I get into the big one, like one of my earliest ones was when Little Shop of Horrors first came out on DVD. They included the alternate ending where the plant took over the world, kaiju style. All they could find was a black and white VHS dub of this ending, and they put that on. And then after it was released, the producers were like, hey, I didn't sign off on that. And so they pulled that DVD, and it was really hard to find. And I ran out and was able to find it at FYE, if you remember those. I think it's still around. And I held on to it. And for a while, it was worth a lot of money. And then when the Blu-ray came out, they decided to go back, find the original film elements, actually restore that ending and put it on the Blu-ray, and then the DVD is worthless. But
I actually got
from grail to fail.
I got to see a screening of the remastered Little Shop of Horrors at an Alamo Draft House near us, and I love that movie, and I love both endings. They're both canon to me. I love them. I'm a big musicals guy. Jesus. I'm a big musicals guy, and that's just one of my favorites. I love it when horror gets mixed up in my musicals. It's like
absolutely,
peanut butter and
perfection.
chocolate, salty and sweet.
Yeah.
I mean,
Agreed.
I have my miniature Audrey too right here. I'm holding up for you to see.
So that was just a builder grail, a grail along the way. What did you eventually get led to?
I am going to talk about a time like, and so we're going to switch it up. Instead of like Indiana Jones searching for the Holy Grail, let's say Indiana Jones getting to go to that warehouse of oddities. Because one time, and I'm not going to name the person's name in case they would get in trouble for this. They should. A person who worked at DC Comics let me visit their library and archive. This was going back before the DC moved to Burbank, so this was the New York Library and Archive. And it was just like, come see all this stuff. And I get to go play around in there. They're like, here's Mr. Freeze's ice cannon from Batman and Robin. I'm like, oh, take a picture with me with it. Like, here's Catwoman's whip from Batman Returns. I got to choke myself with Catwoman's whip. Whoa. This movie introduced me to kink, and then I got to realize it in the DC library.
I think that is a lot of people's fantasies.
Exactly. And Michelle Pfeiffer held it, and it was around my neck. It's just amazing. Or it's like, here's Bob Kane's cash check for the his first issue of Detective Comics. I'm not going to cite the amount, but even with inflation, it was not much. And then it's just so, or I got to see like when Kirby was doing DC Comics, like according to like style, his Superman was getting redrawn, just the face. And so getting to see like the unaltered Kirby covers with Superman.
Wow.
And then, like the thing I really wanted to take, but they wouldn't let me, was there's a issue of the New 52 Swamp Thing that got pulped before it was ever released, because on one page, a certain a panel, one of Swamp Thing's tentacles looked a lot like a penis. And so they pulped it. And there was a stack of them in the library. I'm like, can I just have one? The person was like, no, absolutely not. And for years, I kept this to myself. And then it was great. One night on Twitter, Scott Snyder decided to tell a story. And when I start seeing the thread, I'm like, oh, wait a second, he's doing this. And then he finally told the story and showed the panel. I'm like, oh my God, it's out there. But
so he has a copy?
Yes, clearly. And more power to him. But I mean, it was very innocuous, like Swamp Thing penis. Like, I don't know. But what I'm going to say is even more valuable, and I'm going to hold it up. This is a pulped issue of Mad that was never released because it had a truly tasteless fold-in joke. I haven't folded it. You guys are seeing something that no one else is seeing outside of the DC archive.
Wow.
It was a fold-in joke that was just deemed too tasteless, but they had already printed it, so they pulped it. And
wow. And how many issues were in the archive that you got to take one? Do you remember?
I was first of all surprised when he's like, go ahead and take one. I'm like, really? This feels more offensive than Swamp Thing penis.
So when is it from?
What?
When is the issue from?
It is the June 2013 issue 521.
Wow.
I mean, it did come out with a different fold-in joke.
Okay, so everything else about the issue got re-released.
Yes.
Wow. So are you going to make us guess what the fold-in joke is?
I mean, if you want to guess.
We wouldn't want to inadvertently get Spec Tales canceled because of a joke that was too base for Mad Magazine. That's more than bottom of the barrel. That's like underneath the barrel, maybe a couple of feet underground.
Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, Randall, you can share whatever feels right. I'm curious, like, is it about someone else's IP, or is it about offending who someone is, or like what is the brand of humor that required it be removed quick and pulped?
Gun violence.
Oh my gosh. Yep. Interesting. Was it an issue of timing, or was it in bad taste regardless of timing?
In bad taste regardless of timing, but then again, I think, when we talk about stuff like satire, it holds up a mirror to society. Like I ultimately would argue it's not tasteless, but because it is satire, but it could be seen in poor taste.
Fascinating. And look, you just have it on your desk loose. Where do you keep it when you're not presenting it to us as your Grail tale?
I keep it on a shelf. I wish I had a big enough bag and board for it, because it's not mint from my years with it, but it's on a shelf.
That is so cool. Not just because it is something that a handful of people in the world have, but it also is part of a memory that, again, not that many people get to say they experienced.
Exactly. I mean, I look at it and I think of Michelle Pfeiffer's whip. And so
there is something like sacred about objects. The idea of going like, oh, this was a screen used. Michelle Pfeiffer touched this. She's no longer touching it, I presume. She just detached it.
She wasn't in the archive, unfortunately.
Yeah. So like, what is the emotion that you feel like, being amongst those like totems of comics and comics movies past?
Oh, I'm also bearing the lead. I got to hold an Action Comics #1.
Whoa.
Like out of its bag and board?
So here's the thing. It was actually every single individual page was laminated.
Oh my God.
Someone in the 70s essentially destroyed the value of this comic, but at the same time preserved it because it locked in all the colors and prevented 40 years of deterioration. And so this is used as a reference for reproductions, and it's gorgeous, but every single page was laminated.
That's so fun. I wonder if that's the full reason they had a lamination machine. Or did they have to pay for it? Because laminating can be so expensive. It's like 50 inch you laminate things.
My private tour did not include the lamination machine, so I don't know.
But to be around that sacred object.
Yeah. Or I don't know if there was like a 70s Kinko's open.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Now, what year is it approximately that you're in the archive?
Well, I feel maybe it had to have been like 2009, 2010.
Well, no, it had to be 2013 if the issue of Matt.
Oh, God.
Unless you time traveled.
I'm suddenly very impressed.
The archive is some sort of outside of time space.
Sorry, I was trying to think of when they moved, and my brain went to, it was pre-New 52, but no, then they moved in 2 stages, and this was after the first wave of moving and before the second wave of moving. So yes, it was perhaps maybe 2014.
And as far as you know, I guess the archive must still exist, but on the West Coast.
I mean, I'd be so curious to know what they took and what they discarded. It'd break my heart if they threw out all the Swamp Things. And yeah, then it was just filing cabinet after filing cabinet of loose issues, and also just shelves of every series in library-bound collections. So,
wow.
Can you imagine Marie Kondoing the DC archive? Like, oh, no, this Swamp Thing with the Swamp Thing penis episode brings me joy, so I'm going to keep it.
Right. But we have to get rid of 5 other things in order to keep it, or whatever the formula is.
I don't know. I think if it sparks joy, you get to keep it. Therefore, everything got moved. Because there's going to be at least one dork who's like, this is really important, you guys. Sparking joy right now.
I would love to find out. And I hope it's still there and just as vibrant of a library.
I have another Grail Tale treasure-seeking question. Like, this is going backwards, but how did the phone call happen? Like, how did the do you want to come to the archive conversation happen?
I mean, I've made some friends over the years. I've just sort of, and so this person actually, I can thank for so many things, but he was just a really good guy. Still is. He's still alive. I'm not going to say he was past him. But he's someone who's just always been kind to me. And he was like, hey, do you want to do this? And I'm like, yes,
Did he have to sneak you in, or is it okay to bring guests?
Yeah,
okay.
I was allowed in there. It was not a stealth visit.
You weren't in your cat burglar outfit?
No. If so, I would have taken the Action Comics and one of the Swamp Things and probably the whip.
And the whip, because it would have matched your outfit that you were wearing.
Everything. I would have taken it all.
That is amazing. That is such a fun Grail tale, because like any good Grail tale, it's the experience, it's the feeling, and it's the memory. And that's, as Lisa said, objects represent that for us. And you got to be surrounded by them for a few minutes or a few hours or however long you were in there.
How long were you in there?
Yeah.
A good hour at least. And and then I went outside the actual library to just their book room and rated it. It was all like current, trades and omnibuses. I'm like, I'll take this and this. Like the Criterion Closet part of the floor.
They should do videos like that. DC should do that and post like Criterion does on YouTube. Those are so fun to watch what people pick out.
That actually should happen.
Publishers, listen.
I'm gonna send a message to a couple people.
Well, if they do it, then I think Lisa and I get to be on those videos doing it, since it came up here. You heard it here first.
On Spec Tales. And Jake and Jesus will not get to go because they're not available.
Exactly. Exactly. For Skrulls only. All right. I love it. Does that close us out of our Grail Tale segment?
Oh, wait, you two don't share your Grail Tales?
We're hosts, so we don't get to share our Grail Tales.
You get to hear, you can go back to an old Spec Tales and hear my Grail Tale, and you can go into your time machine and go into the future and hear Lisa's Grail Tale.
That's right.
All right, fair enough.
Because Lisa will be on a future episode sharing hers, and I was on a past one, and I have no idea when. Last year sometime. All right, to our final segment.
Speculation.
All right, for our closing segment, we are going to name a comic or collectible that we think is undervalued, that we think readers or collectors should take another look at. Maybe it's something overlooked, or perhaps it's something that we think is going to go up in value in the future because of some other media tie-in, or anything we just think people should go out and get. So, Randall, you're starting us off. What's your speculation?
Do this again. Well, I was going to say, the best way to, raise the value of something is to destroy as many copies as you can. So I think let's just pick a title and just go out there. I was thinking about this. It was like this DC series lasted like maybe 12, 13 issues called Gross Point back in late 90s. It's kind of just like a quirky horror comedy comic set in a haunted town. And I want more people to talk about it. So that's my main reason for saying, like, let's do this. But did either one of you ever read this?
No.
The title sounds familiar, but then
there was that TV show, The Gross Point Blank, that was like the parody of 90210. I'm assuming it's not related.
There's also a John Cusack film of the same name where I think he was like a secret spy.
He was an assassin who had to go to a high school reunion.
There you go. Yeah, that's right.
So, no, and that makes a perfect spec book, is something we haven't heard of, but that could easily be mined for a revival of in comics or on screen.
1997, Mark Waid and Sean Taggart.
Past Spec Tales guest Mark Waid.
Yeah, so if he's listening, Mark, I'm rooting for you. I heard he's an up and coming writer. So,
so bring Gross Point back. All right. That's a fun book. And is it something, do you know, like you can get in dollar bins, or is it?
If anywhere, I don't know where else you find it.
Probably just hard to find.
Yeah. Huh.
Very cool. Definitely going to have to look for that. All right, Jesus, you're up.
I'm going to drop the facade for a moment. I know it's not very Skrull-like of me, but because I don't know if Jesus would stand behind these recommendations, and maybe I could use my powers for evil, but I will not. I'm not a very when my speculation is not like monetary, mine is like entertainment value, So,
that is worth specking on for sure.
Yeah, I love to go to a dollar bin, pull out something that looks totally weird, and then I think about it for a really long time, and you go investment of time of reading versus investment of time contemplating. That's amazing. So I have 2 series that I'm currently I've just started going I totally want to collect this, and one of these is a DC title, and it is Angel Love. Randall, what do you know about Angel Love?
I own it.
You own it? You have all of it? So
Yes.
I was at actually a convention where it's a very tiny convention called Big Lick Comic Con, and it happens in like a warehouse, totally kind of like people's backyard, kinds of level of selling comics. Mark Waid was there though, which was wild. So we said hi to Mark Waid and was like, okay, we're going to now raid the dollar bins. But these are the kinds of conventions where you really find some really rad, cheap stuff. And I managed to find issues 3, 4, and 5 of Angel Love by Barbara Slate. And what I love about this comic, you look at it and it's super cartoony, almost like Sunday strip level cartooning.
Yeah, like Blondie. Yeah.
Yeah, except for Blondie is trying to talk one of her female friends through their decision to have an abortion. So it's from DC's mature line, and it's about this woman, Angel Love. She is from Scranton, Pennsylvania, and she is trying to make it in the big city. She's in New York, and she cartoons a little angel on her, artist table, and that angel comes to life and acts as a guardian angel, from what I could tell. So I've only read these 3 issues, but I'm totally hooked. I want them all, and I want them all. So the sticker on it says $4, but I got them all. I got these 3 for $1, and they're still paying dividends of me just thinking about Angel Love. And then the other one, I love a lot of times, Guido knows this, I'm obsessed with the Monkees. So I actually already have all of the Monkees comics in various conditions. But I still always go to see if there's a slightly better version, a slightly less beat up one of the Monkees comics. So that has me digging through the Monkees ones are Dell, but I end up looking at the Dell and the Charlton comics and all that stuff. And I found this is from Modern Comics, but it's actually a reprint from Charlton Comics, and it's Haunted Love. And it's from the 70s, gothic romance trend. And I'm also, I like to collect golden age romance comics and stuff like that. And what I love is romance comics are so often these are marketed to women, but the stories in this are just so wild. The first story in this issue is about this man. He's been hired as a tutor for these rich parents' young daughter who just has not been able, they've been really churning through tutors because their daughter is such an individual case. So he goes to this mansion to be the tutor to this girl, and she walks out and it's a full grown woman, but she's acting like a 13-year-old girl. And so he begins tutoring this girl, and she becomes smarter and smarter through the tutoring, and she seems to really be retaining the information, but then she's also becoming more mature throughout the time. So it gets to where he's really inspired by her, and now he's fallen in love with her, and they share this kiss, and then they both retire to separate boudoirs. But then the next morning, the parents are like, "We didn't tell you something," and he's like, what is it? So the kicker is, I'm going to spoil it for you, this comic from 1978. But so every time she goes to sleep, she has this really specific amnesia where she forgets everything and she goes back to being like a 13-year-old girl mentally. And that's the creepy story. And creepy it is, but for completely different reasons, I think, than these writers anticipated. But I want all of the issues to this. There are 11 from Charlton. This is the only one that's been reprinted by Modern Comics. But apparently, like, Steve Ditko did the art for one of them, and I just want them all. That beeping is me, and in my defense, this is Brad's computer, and I don't know why it's beeping. And I'm sorry if I'm lowering the value of this episode.
No, it didn't come through.
Okay, okay, good. I'm apologizing for something that didn't happen. I'm perfect. Okay, and now I'm changing back to Jesus, and there we go, beard and all.
I love it. Angel love and haunted romance.
Haunted love. Angel love and haunted love. Yes.
Oh, it's love, not romance.
Yes,
of
it's
course.
tales of gothic romance.
Fun. All right. Well, on the DC train, but also on the love romance train, I'm going to say that the current run of Poison Ivy is a book worth picking up for a lot of reasons. But one is that it was so successful. It was meant to be a miniseries. And this is so rare nowadays that something is announced as a miniseries and just turn into an ongoing, not renumbered, nothing. They just let it turn into an ongoing. G. Willow Wilson, Marcio Takara, and it is Poison Ivy's, believe it or not, first solo title. Currently about 13 issues in when this episode is coming out. And it is really good. This is a character I had no attachment to, and it is really good horror about her powers and her sense of ecology. And then also incredible queer romance. Once Harley shows up in the book and you get a few issues of their relationship, and it is so well done. And I think that it is just ripe for the picking for some adaptation, because while I appreciate Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy from the 90s and the camp value of it, this would be like, if you wanted to see Poison Ivy on screen, this is the story to pull from, because G. Willow Wilson just does an amazing job with who she is, why she's scary, and her relationship with Harley. So
Yay.
I'm love this series.
I'm not reading it yet, but it's like on the pull list. It's just like one of those that's just been like stacking up, because I love the idea of like Harley and Ivy's romance coming out of like coming from the fandom and then manifesting within the canon. I think it's just like so beautiful. And I don't sign off on all of that stuff, like all of the fans going like, this should happen. But I think that this is like a truly beautiful thing, and I'm so excited to read it. And I love G. Willow Wilson. I love so fun.
It's on my to read list. How is it compared to like the Harley Quinn cartoon, where like that their romance is like the heart of the show and just kind of gets me all choked up?
Yeah, I think they're great companions, even though there's no similarity. The comic is totally serious, but really engaging because it's so well written. The horror and the action. The first arc, she's out on the road, so she's not with Harley, and I don't even know the backstory to like why her powers are messing up in the way that they are, but it doesn't matter. You can still appreciate it. And then once Harley comes in, it's actually really touching. So I think in the same way as the show, that it's this really moving relationship that you get to really feel on the page or on the screen. It's not at all the tone of the show. So I think they're perfect companions to each other for being different versions. Yeah, and the hardcover of Poison Ivy Volume 1 just came out. Barnes & Noble has an exclusive edition with some of the precursor issues that the, for some reason, comic store version does not have, direct market version does not have. So worth picking up.
I have the direct market version. Now I'm like, crap.
I agree. I actually have the direct market version that I need to give away to someone, because I then went and picked up the Barnes & Noble one. Yeah. So those are our specs. Some good choices and some good DC and or Bronze Age love themed.
Ooh, yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. We did it. We successfully have infiltrated Spec Tales.
You know what? You know what? I might just stay. I've never been so comfortable in my life as Jesus, and maybe I'll take over other areas of his life. I hear he's got a new home, so I could use the space, frankly.
Yeah. Well, let's do it. Let's make this an ongoing thing. It's been such a pleasure. And Randall, it's been great to have you as a guest on our version of Spec Tales. Randall, tell Spec Tales listeners where to find you and what you're up to.
Well, if you can figure out how to spell my last name, I'm really easy to find. Lotowyczz, Randall Lotowycz. And I'm on all the socials, so you can find me there. As for what I'm working on, nothing really. The Flash book came out. I'm kind of trying to take it easy and not do any sort of writing projects right now. I'm loving my job as a book editor. I have a book coming out with a promising young author. It's called we're still working on the final title, but it's called Queer Mythology, and it's a children's book all about just the fact that even the gods were gay, and looking at various mythology from all around the world and how they were queer. So
who wrote that?
I think he hasn't written it yet, I don't believe, but I believe his name is Guido Sanchez, and we should keep an eye out for that book next year. And I can't wait to start editing it in a few months.
Well, yeah, Guido's great. I've heard a lot about him. He's been a guest on Spec Tales. He's a great guy, and
he's totally on top of his deadlines.
I heard he's 2/3 of the way through it, and yep, it's something to look forward to.
I'm so looking forward to it. I'm so excited.
It has been a ton of fun. Yes, when I get to be Guido Skrull, I get to write that, and it's a ton of fun. The other thing I do when I'm not Jake is host Dear Watchers, a comic book omniverse podcast. So you can go listen to me there every single week, exploring the multiverse of comics and film and TV and all the things that we love.
Yeah,
Lisa, when you're not Jesus.
When I'm not Jesus.
I was just going to say, when I first went on that, I thought it was like a voyeur podcast. I was a little bit... Sorry.
Lisa, when you're not Jesus, what are you up to?
When I am not Jesus, I am Lisa Gullickson on the Comic Book Couples Counceling podcast, which is hosted by me and my husband, Brad Gullickson. And we talk about romance in comics through the lens of like self-help and self-care. So we take a comic book couple like Scott and Jean, and we pair them with the self-help book that they need, which is clearly the 5 love languages, and we make their relationship better, and in turn make our relationship better. And we also
and your listeners' relationships.
I hope so. Though we are not experts. Don't think we're experts. We don't know what we're talking about. So right now we are in our Invincible. We're doing the last 4 volumes of Invincible with Mark and Eve, using the book Permission to Feel by Dr. Mark Brackett. And our most recent episode is actually a Creator Corner with Jean Luen Yang talking American-born Chinese.
Yeah. And otherwise, this has been Spec Tales, and you can find Spec Tales on the internet everywhere and at Spec Tales, and make sure to let Jake and Jesus know what you thought of their doubles.